All right, Raider Nation, there are big things happening with the Las Vegas Raiders, and one of the biggest things that could happen this season is a monstrous trade with the Cleveland Browns for one of their superstars, a guy that would make us instantly respectable on the defense. We're going to talk about that and some more and some interesting scenarios, as well as what it would take to get this guy onto the Raiders and why this would make Maxx Crosby absolutely ecstatic. Let's jump into today's video. But before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed to the Raider D podcast and you'll love the Las Vegas Raiders. Do me a favor and hit that like button. Doesn't cost you a penny. And drop your comments down below with any ideas, comments, opinions, whatever it is that you have. I love going through the comments. Now let's get on to today's video. There is a guy who is a 5-time Pro Bowler, a guy who has over 100 sacks in his career. He was drafted in the first round in 2017, and he was the 2023 NFL Defensive Player of the Year. We are talking about none other than Myles Garrett, the absolute monster defensive end for the Cleveland Browns. And this guy has officially now requested a trade from Cleveland. Now, one thing that I do want to just talk about is when people hear that a superstar player like a Myles Garrett requests a trade from his team, they instantly think, ooh, diva, don't want no part of him. Well, let's just clarify a few things. This guy has been with Cleveland since 2017. He's been put through the ringer with them, and he has stood by their side. But he is getting towards the end of his career, and he just doesn't want to finish his entire NFL career on a team that's simply not doing anything to try and win. Cleveland has not put together a team in years, much like the Las Vegas Raiders. But unlike the Las Vegas Raiders, Cleveland's done absolutely nothing, especially this offseason. And so Myles Garrett basically said, listen, if you're not going to do anything, if you're not going to go out there and get a star coach, if you're not going to go out there and bring in some star players to this team, then I don't want to spend the rest of my career here and just, let my career die in abysmal Cleveland for absolutely no reason. No disrespect to people who live in Cleveland. I'm sure you're all fine people. However, it is the Cleveland Browns, and let's just be honest, they're as bad or worse than most teams in the NFL. And so nobody can blame Myles Garrett for wanting out of Cleveland. That being said, why would the Raiders want to go out and get him? Number one is because Maxx Crosby has said in the past that he is getting tired of finally, like 1 year, they'll get a pretty good defense put together, and the next year, everybody's gone, and he's starting over, and it's a new coach, and it's new this, and it's new that, and the Raiders weren't going out and getting him any help. It was basically the Maxx Crosby show pretty much since he was drafted, and he's getting tired of that. He wants some help. He wants to put the team to put together a dominant defense that includes more pieces than just him. Now, last year, the Raiders did go out, and they got him Christian Wilkins to line up next to him, and a lot of people were saying, oh, look, Christian Wilkins, he's overpaid bum and he's a bust and this and that. I beg to differ. Christian Wilkins, when you go back and look at it, he had the pressures and he was doing his job, which was to stop the run. He was an absolute nightmare for running backs until he ended up getting hurt. Now, what is his role? Is number one is to pressure the quarterback into the hands of the defensive end. That's what he does. If he gets you 9 sacks in a season, that's just icing on the cake, but that's not his primary role. His primary role is to eat up the middle, cause pressure, stop the run, and help Maxx Crosby to get freed up off of those double teams, because now you have to pay attention to Christian Wilkins. So if the Raiders could add a Myles Garrett to this defensive line, you now have 3 superstars on this line. Now, maybe some people will say Christian Wilkins isn't a superstar yet. Maybe he's just a star defensive tackle. Hasn't really proven it yet. Let's see if he can. But I think if you have Maxx Crosby on one end, Myles Garrett on the other end, and you have Christian Wilkins in the middle, you're going to have a star-studded lineup, and that's going to allow other guys to really come into their own, like a Tyree Wilson, again, a number 7 overall draft pick from just a couple of years ago, and help him to mature and get into his game as well. Don't know about Malcolm Koonce, if he's going to be able to come back or not. We really hope he does. We love Malcolm here on the Raider D podcast. He's a phenomenal guy and a Raider at heart, so we really hope that he can get a deal done with the Raiders and come back. However, with that being said, You cannot pass on a Myles Garrett. Now, I understand that Myles Garrett is going to have interest from a lot of different teams. We're not the only team that's going to be willing to trade for him. And I think that there's a reason why the Raiders would want to trade for him. And I'm going to get into that in just a second, because I know a lot of people will say, oh, we got Max Crosby. What do we need him for? I'm going to explain why the Raiders probably will make a run at Myles Garrett and should make a run at Myles Garrett. But I do just want to talk about the fact that Myles Garrett, what he would bring to any defense, especially with the Las Vegas Raiders, is instant credibility and fear factor of any offensive line. Because now you have a situation where who do you double team? Somebody is going to get open. And we know Patrick Graham likes to run linebacker blitzes, safety blitzes, even a corner blitz once in a while. And because he's our defensive coordinator, that's going to open a lot of things up, because you have to double team Myles Garrett. But you also have to double team Max Crosby. And you also have to double team Christian Wilkins. Well, there's just not enough offensive linemen. Teams will literally have to go into 13-man personnel, which basically means you've got like 3 tight ends out there just to help block all of these monsters. And so that's going to free a lot of things up for like a Robert Spillane, again, a guy that we got to get re-signed. Do not want to let him walk in the free agency. He is a top 10 linebacker in the NFL, and he was tops in tackles last year. But this is going to free him up to go into those linebacker blitz packages. It's going to free up our safeties to get into those safety blitz packages. And so I think that Myles Garrett added to this defensive line just instantly creates credibility and fear factor for all opposing teams. Now let's get into why the Raiders would want to go after Myles Garrett and why Myles Garrett would want to come to the Raiders. Number one, the Raiders are going to want to go after him because we are in win mode now. We're not in rebuild. You do not go and hire a 73-year-old coach if you're going to tear everything down and just slowly rebuild it up through the draft and young players. Don't forget, the Raiders are the 3rd youngest team in the NFL. So we've already got a lot of youth that we need to build up, but we need to bring in some savvy veterans, some Pro Bowlers, defensive guys of the year type guys like a Max Crosby and Myles Garrett, and instantly upgrade this team. Now, we've talked about the quarterback position. Could go out there and grab a Sam Darnold. I believe that would be a upgrade to the quarterback position, but only slightly. So I think that you could still win with Aiden O'Connell as your quarterback. But if the Raiders are not going to get a quarterback right now, then you have to do something else to win. And one way that you could do that is instantly building up your defensive line, because defensive line, edge rushers especially, they are game wreckers. And if you have 2 of them, well, I guess that's 4. If you have 2 of them who are absolute Pro Bowl superstar, all-pro type guys like a Myles Garrett and a Max Crosby on the same team, you're really going to wreak some havoc. And so you could win games like that. Now, it's really hard to win a game with just a Max Crosby. And that's why we went and got Christian Wilkins. It's why we drafted Tyree Wilson. He hasn't really panned out yet, but we'll see how he works out this year. But again, if you add a Myles Garrett, you now have the ability to win games with them. You still got to address situations on the offense, and this is why we went and just took, a slingshot and hit the jackpot, bringing in Chip Kelly to come and be the offensive coordinator. He is a mastermind of offense. So really looking forward to seeing a much improved offensive play this year. But again, you got to go and add some instant ability, because you're not going to get a Tom Brady as your quarterback. You're not going to get a Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback this year. If you go out and get Sam Darnold in the free agency, that's fine. He is an upgrade over Aiden O'Connell stats-wise. I think Aiden O'Connell with an entire season with a true X receiver and Brock Bowers could probably throw up 3,500 to 4,000 yards, which is pretty comparable. Not quite at Sam Darnold last year, but it's pretty comparable. So I think the best solution that you can do is you go and you get a superstar like Myles Garrett, because there's a superstar in the draft named Abdul Carter. Unlikely he's going to be available at pick number 6. And so if you can work out a trade, the only thing is, how much would the trade cost for the Raiders to get a Myles Garrett. Let's talk about that. Myles Garrett was a former first-round draft pick in 2017. He's getting a little bit old in the tooth, but he's not even, I don't even think he's 30 years old yet. I think he's 29. And correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, because I didn't actually look up his age. I forgot to do that before I started this video. So yes, Raider D is not perfect. But let's talk about what it would cost to get him. You know, if you were going to trade Maxx Crosby at the beginning of last year, it probably cost you 2, maybe 3 first-round draft picks to get him. This time around, because of his knee injury, maybe you get 1 first-round draft pick and a compensatory type draft picks later in the draft, something like that. Myles Garrett doesn't have injury issues. And so I think if the Raiders were to make a serious run at him, they would most likely have to give up a first-round draft pick this year. If you're not going to draft a quarterback, if you know that you're not in love with any Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and you're not drafting a quarterback, you know Abdul Carter's not there, you know you can get a star running back like Scadaboo in the second round, you know you could get a Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel in the second round, then I think it would be worth it. You're getting an immediate superstar Pro Bowler to come on this team and create a devastating defensive line. And so it may be that the Raiders would have to give up a first-round draft pick this year. Maybe you have to give up a second-round draft pick next year. Maybe a third round this year. Something along those lines is what you would have to pay to get a Myles Garrett away from them. But why would Myles Garrett want to come to the Raiders? Because remember, Myles Garrett doesn't want to play for a team that can't win, and the Raiders have not been able to win for a long time. Here's why I think Myles Garrett would love to come to the Raiders. Because he has a Super Bowl head coach, a Super Bowl champion head coach. He has a national championship offensive coordinator in Chip Kelly. He has a consistent, steady hand at the defensive position in Patrick Graham and defensive line coach Robbie Leonard, who is becoming a star defensive mind himself. And most importantly, he has Maxx Crosby and Christian Wilkins. If I'm Myles Garrett and I want to go to a team that has a great chance of turning things around and becoming a winner immediately, I want to go to Las Vegas. You're going to make more money in Las Vegas than you are in Cleveland paying all those taxes. And you get to play with another guy at your level in Maxx Crosby. Wow, what a tandem this would be. I said it before that Maxx Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz are like Batman and Robin. Dude, this would be like Batman and Superman. Drop your comments down below. Let me know. Do you want to see Myles Garrett in the silver and black? Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And don't forget to like this video on your way out. Let's go, Raiders!